Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to give it a couple minutes. Well, probably a minute, let more folks come in. Thank you for coming to our SABRC training. All right. Another minute and then we'll get started. To start, my name is Michelle Ceballos. I am the co-lead here at CalRecycle, Senior Environmental Scientist, and I help lead the SABRC program. Today, we're going to discuss SABRC and also the changes that occurred due to AB 661. And everybody, if everybody can see my screen, can someone let me know?
Yes, we can see it.
Great. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Before we begin, I just want to let you guys know we will be taking questions. We're going to use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. So if you see the question answer, you're just going to click on that and enter in your question. We're not going to answer questions using the chat pane today. You can also ask a question if you want to go through the SABRC@calrecycle.ca.gov email, and we will be monitoring that as well. We will go through the questions first come, first serve, and we're going to get as many different questions as possible. If you cannot unmute yourself, let us know in the Q&A, and then we can read your question for you. All right, let's get started. So today we're going to cover what SABRC is and why it's important. We're going to talk about the requirements for state agencies, finding SABRC-compliant products, tracking and reporting, and then we're going to discuss a little bit about our CalRecycle process. We have two groups that not only do assistance, which is a local assistance and market development group, which is the group I'm in, and also the jurisdiction and agency compliance and enforcement branch. They're the ones that are reviewing the reports for compliance purposes. And then we work together as a team to assist you guys. So here we're going to talk about program overview. The goal of the SABRC program is to promote the purchase of products that contain post-consumer recycled content material, or also called PCRC. This is a part of the California push for a circular economy. There are currently 16 product categories that agencies must track purchases under these purchases, must track the purchases and then meet the minimum PCRC percentage. We're going to refer to various resource web pages, including CalRecycle's. Our web pages are updated regularly and are instructional for specific users. There will be links following at the end of the presentation to our homepage, and then throughout the presentation, we will be putting additional links up in the chat. All right, so who administers SABRC? So it's a joint program between DGS and CalRecycle. The Department of General Services is our statutory partner in SABRC, and we collaborate to assist state agencies to help increase the procurement of PCRC products. DGS integrates the SABRC statute requirements into state contracts by highlighting eligibility and composition of PCRC products sold to state agencies. DGS also administers their Environmentally Preferable Purchasing, or EPP program, and provides EPP and SABRC education via the Cal PCA classes. DGS provides non-compliance oversight through their Purchasing Authority Unit. And then CalRecycle provides the SABRC training, resources, technical assistance, and analyzes annual report data. We also provide DGS the SABRC annual report results to post on their Green Buyer website. So it's important to understand the meaning of post-consumer in order to fully understand and comply with SABRC requirements. So here's the definition. Post-consumer is materials derived from products that were purchased, used, and then recycled by a consumer. Sometimes when you're purchasing products, you may see pre-consumer, which would be materials from a manufacturer. And you may also see total recycled content, which would be pre plus post-consumer. But in this statute, we're specifically talking about post-consumer recycled content. So what are the benefits of purchasing PCRC products? There's many benefits. With the state purchasing power, we have the ability to make a market difference. The SABRC program is part of the circular economy to purchase recycled content goods and support recycled content manufacturing. So for fiscal year 2020 to 2021, the state spent $3.9 billion in total purchases. And of that, 248 million were SABRC compliant purchases. So in the last 10 years, the program has gone from 2011, 2012, from 70% SABRC compliant spending to last year, the last reporting year, 2020, 2021, was 88% compliant spending. So what's required of state agencies? So all purchases of SABRC reportable products must be tracked and reported annually, even those products that contain no post-consumer material. SABRC reportable purchases are any purchases of a product that falls within one of the 16 categories. All purchases of SABRC reportable products must be tracked and reported annually. Okay, so SABRC reportable purchases are, there's reportable and there's also compliant. We're going to talk about that here in a second. In addition, for most of the categories, save for 3, paint, antifreeze, and tires, the minimum total dollar spent should be 75% total dollar spent should be for all those categories, except for paint, antifreeze, and tires, and that would be 50%. And with the changes with AB 661 that we're going to talk about, annual training is going to be required for all procurement officers and their designees. All right. So here's some definitions. It's really important to know the difference between reportable purchases versus compliant purchases. Many find this confusing, so we're going to go through it really quick. SABRC reportable purchases are any purchases of a product that falls within the 16 SABRC product categories, whereas compliant purchases are any purchases of a product that falls within one of the 16 categories and meets the minimum recycled content percentage for that product category. Here's a quick example. So a state agency has 4 purchase orders that total $500 for items made of glass. 2 purchase orders were for laboratory gear, which required beakers and test tubes equaling $200. Because of the nature of these products, they're not available with post-consumer recycled content. The other 2 purchase orders were for awards to executive director and staff and were made with 15% post-consumer recycled content, which equaled $300. So historically, the minimum PCRC requirement for glass was 10%. With the changes, it's gone up to 20, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. In this example, though, it was based on last year's percent. It would have the $300 for SABRC compliant. Those would have met the minimum compliant PCRC, whereas the lab beakers and the lab test tubes would not have been compliant because they didn't have any recycled content in them. So the total reportable is $500. And then what's compliant would be the $300. All right, and here's just a great little graphic. This was based on the prior requirements. There was only 11 categories then. We're going to update it to reflect the new categories, but it's just a great graphic that our group here made, which I think is really great. All right, so we're going to talk about categories and then I'll pause for questions. So effective this year, January 1st of this year, AB 661 added 5 more categories. There were 11 categories, and there's also been upgrades to, or not upgrades, but changes to the PCRC content on some of those. So we're just going to highlight the ones that are new. So building finishes used to be under metals, and now it's its own category. Whoops, sorry about that. Carpet used to be under plastic, and now it's its own category. Erosion control products are new. We'll get into that more deeper later slides. Glass products, like I said, they did go up. It was 10%, now it's 25%. And then with fiberglass specifying is actually 30% recycled content. Lubricating oils, metals, paints, those didn't change. But you'll notice paper products, now it's the statute does define and separate out the minimum recycled content for toilet paper, paper towels, facial tissues, toilet seat covers, and general purpose wipes. So you can see those percentages on the screen. And also food service ware. Another new category is pavement surfaces. Plastic products stayed the same. Plastic products was 10%, now it's 20% for minimum PCRC content. But there's been no additions or subtractions when it comes to those subcategories. I think historically they did have the ink cartridges and stuff, but those were 10%, and now they're up to 20%, or they can have a take back program, and those take back programs it would meet the requirements for SABRC. So that would be considered SABRC compliant. Soil amendment and toppings used to be compost and mulch for a category, and now compost and mulch are subcategories. And we have another new category, textiles. So we can talk about textiles here in a second. Textiles are anything made of fiber, whether it's natural fiber or non-natural fiber, acrylics, nylons. But if you notice, the minimum recycled content for textiles is 0. So all of it is reportable and all of it is compliant for all textiles except for general textile wipes. So those are like, I've seen them in shops, you know, where you have mechanics or fleet folks working on automobiles, and they have these textile wipes. To meet the SABRC compliant minimum recycled content would be 100% for those. And tire-derived products and tires have not changed. So I'm going to pause there. Do we have any questions thus far?
Michelle, yeah, we just had a couple of questions about how they would, if this PowerPoint would be accessible.
Yes. The PowerPoint will be posted along with the webinar. The webinar is being recorded, and we are also going to put it up on our website for future viewing.
Are we going to be emailing out links to this?
To the webinar?
Yeah, and the PowerPoint.
Yes, we can. We can do a listserv to all the SABRC coordinators. As soon as it's ready, we'll send it out to everyone.
Okay, that's all we got so far.
Perfect. Okay, so here's additional updates. So another update. So historically, it was fitness and quality were equal. If fitness and quality were equal, then agencies should purchase recycled content if economically feasible. AB 661 has language now that the recycled product should be purchased if fitness and quality are equal and the cost is no more than 10% greater of the total cost. And then, as you can see, one of the following apply. The agency either uses an LPA, awards a contract, or awards a contract without soliciting multiple offers based on the price of fair and reasonable. In addition, the University of California's didn't have to report, and now they are subject to procurement requirements. I'm sorry, they're subject to reporting, but not to the procurement requirements. Oops. Sorry, guys. In addition, the agency shall require contracted businesses to use recycled content or recycled products to the maximum extent economically feasible in the performance of contracted work. Additional updates, working with DGS Procurement Division to include AB 661 information into newly created EPP intermediate training module. So as you can see, oh, that was the second one, but the first one, you know, annual reporting on purchases of 16 categories. We've already talked about that, but now there is training. So we've been working with DGS. They do have CalPCA where they have all their procurement training. So we're working with them to get training in that arena. So there's a one-stop shop for procurement training. And then with that, we will also be getting a list every year. And the training would be due at the end of the fiscal year, each fiscal year. And so every year that training would be a requirement, again, for procurement officers and their designees. So once that training is live, a listserv message will go out to all agency contacts, and LAM staff will also be notified where to direct agency contacts to. The website will be updated. So there'll be a lot of information going out with that training once it is in fact available. Okay, I'm going to pause there. Any additional questions?
None yet.
Okay. So reused, refurbished, manufactured products is still qualified as 100% SABRC compliant. That hasn't changed. And there's a couple examples here on the screen. Reused metal cabinets, chairs, equipment. Those are all considered 100% SABRC compliant if they're reused or refurbished. All right, composite products. We get a lot of questions on this. Composite products are products that consist of 2 or more material types. The cost and recycled content of a composite product can only be recorded in one SABRC category. So if an agency reports composites, then the agency should do so by choosing one appropriate SABRC category to record the product in, and by using the following guidelines. The entire purchase cost can be documented as SABRC reportable dollars if more than half of the product as a whole by weight or volume is made from a single material in a SABRC category. If that material also meets the minimum post-consumer recycled content, then the entire cost can be reported as SABRC-compliant dollars. So can somebody, I forgot to mention earlier, can somebody put the link up to our product categories website and also the composite policy for me in the chat, please? Okay. So how do we find PCRC products? And so here's a couple of slides of information. So DGS does have their EPP program, and in the partnership with SABRC, they have several resources. So they have the eProcure, and I have the link up here on the slide, and the Buying Green website. And in the Buying Green website, you'll be able to find the specific contracts where statewide contracts that do meet SABRC compliance. And if you go through a quick search on eProcure, we found 4 state contracts that meet the SABRC minimum PCRC percentage requirements. And so they're right here: the recycled bond paper, recycled envelopes, newsprint, and recycled exterior paint. And let's see here. And CalRecycle, of course, we have plenty of resources. We've created the product category webpage, which went up in the chat, hopefully. It provides examples of different products that can be purchased in that category and highlights some California manufacturers who utilize the PCRC in their products. There's also a tire-derived product catalog where there is 500 pages of products made from tires, and is organized by use. So for example, accessibility products, animal care, automotive, and etc. So that's a really handy catalog for those that are buying rubber products and can find tire-derived products. Compliant plastic trash bag manufacturers. There's a link there. State agencies must purchase plastic trash bags from certified manufacturers and wholesalers who use 30% post-consumer recycled plastic. Additionally, there's Recycled Content Product Manufacturers Directory, which showcases innovative recycled content products made by California manufacturers. And then I also put in here the Sustainable Package Act, SB 1335. If you follow that link, there is a link and a list to all food service packaging that meets the requirements for SB 1335. So the food servicing packaging must be reusable, recyclable, or compostable, and that list will be on that website. And additional resources, PIA, their online catalog does have items with recycled content certification, and you can search by recycled content. There is also some textiles. Again, if you're purchasing textiles, there are textiles up there as well. Furniture, there's lots of great information there. US EPA recognized the importance of purchasing PCRC products and has a nationwide comprehensive procurement guideline, or CPG product supplier directory. And then, of course, the green office supply catalogs that you see in Office Depot and Staples. And just a reminder that reuse counts. Buying reused, refurbished, or remanufacturers count as 100% SABRC compliant. Surplus properties sold by DGS and other state agencies may be a good source of used items. You can also check for donations for your low-cost materials and products. And just as a reminder, there are certification website we're going to go over next on certifying material, and we'll see if we can put that link. I'm not sure if I remembered the vendor link, but we'll put that up next to see when we talk about certification. So when you're purchasing recycled content, all state agencies and business vendors are required to certify the minimum percentage, if not the exact percentage, of post-consumer recycled content. However, statute also indicates that the certification can be waived if the recycled content is available, if that information is available by other written means. When reviewing and analyzing a SABRC report, CalRecycle may need to view a certification for verification or may request more information. DGS may also choose to review the purchases during its purchase delegation review or other audits. So we have updated our SABRC certification website to assist procurement staff. We do recommend the use of boilerplate language in contracts and bid solicitations. This ensures that not only your agency, but your contractors are aware that they need to purchase and track purchase products. And CalRecycle, we have our Form 74. It's a tool that we created to assist vendors, distributors, contractors, and state agencies. And I'll show you that form in a second. So verification methods, there are different types of verifying. So you can, in the reg, or in the statute, I'm sorry, section 12205, print A of the public, the code, contracting code, sorry. The state agency shall require businesses to certify in writing the minimum percentage. And you can also get the verification product labels, packaging, catalogs, websites, and product advertisement. If you don't have that, here's CalRecycle Form 74. It's been updated to reflect all of the new categories or changes of categories of category name. And then on our homepage, if someone can put the homepage link in the chat, on the homepage, there's going to be this great yellow banner, and you'll see Form 74 guidance right there. In addition to, you'll also see where the composite policy is and additional vendor links and other great information. So we created Form 74 for state agencies to use in the event that post-consumer recycled content information cannot easily be found. That guidance there can assist. I get quite a bit of questions on if vendors can't find it, are they allowed to put unknown? And they are. So check out that link, that website. And if there's additional questions, you can email sabrac@calrecycle.ca.gov for more information. And here's some additional vendor resources, including how to sell to the state of California. Again, the guidance on Form 74 and FAQs. So I'm going to pause there. Any questions?
Hi, Michelle. We have a few questions that are anonymous, so I can't really unmute them, but
okay. Go ahead and ask them.
Sure. The first one is a question about AB 661, the 10% preference. The scenario is if they're buying a pen and a pencil case, the pen from vendor A doesn't have any post-recycle content, but vendor B has 1% on it. Does vendor B still qualify for the preference?
I can't answer on the preference, but if you're saying that it has 1% recycled content, it wouldn't still meet the minimum recycled content if it's being so if a pen or a pencil, right, it's a composite product, but if you're putting it under plastic, it would need to meet, if it's more than 50% plastic, it would need to meet that 20% minimum post-consumer recycled content. So as for preference, again, that's where the boilerplate language comes in. And we don't really get involved in your buying policy, but we put it on you to identify which vendors can help you meet your goals.
Okay, I think the same person is also asking if buying 10 different items, will they also do the recycle preference for each item?
I think I need clarification on that one. Are they sending out the boilerplate language where they're doing a side-by-side comparison of the products that have recycled content versus those that don't and seeing that 10%? Or I'm not sure.
Yeah, so if you're asking this question, since you're anonymous, if you could maybe raise your hand and we could get to you and you could voice your question and clarify, that would be great. Otherwise, I'll just move through the questions here. The next question is, the change to the SABRC requirements occurred halfway through the fiscal year. How will this affect the annual report this year? Right.
That's a great question. So the first part of the fiscal year, you're going to report as normal and track as normal. And then post January 1st, from now, those changes are in effect. Now, I do know that Fiscal hasn't been updated yet. So for those that are tracking in Fiscal, they don't have their updates yet to be able to track it. So we do have at CalRecycle's website There's a link under requires. I'll have to, I don't know if I included that for one to share, but we do have our own tracking guide that you can track those 5 additional categories to keep track of. And then when you report, the next reporting cycle will include all 16 categories, and you're just going to report with what the requirements were for the first half of the fiscal year and then for the second half of the fiscal year. We understand it might get a little messy, but we're going to work through it.
Okay, another question came in from Tiffany Baker. Tiffany, can I get you to ask? I'll unmute you and hopefully you can talk to Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
I was typing my question, I think, right before you were fully going over the form. But just to clarify some information, I did see the links in the chat. So thank you for whoever did that. That was great. And then I guess if there was any additional questions, I didn't catch the email to send them to.
Yeah, sure. That's SABRC, SABRC at CalRecycle.ca.gov.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, another question from Nicolette D'Angelo. Nicolette, I'm going to unmute you.
Hi, I was just curious if we had an idea when fiscal was going to be updated and if that would be for the new fiscal year or if we still were unsure.
That's a good question. So last I had spoken with fiscal, they are anticipating having it updated April, May. So before the end of the fiscal year.
Oh.
I haven't checked. I haven't heard back from them though in the last, few weeks. So I can include that whenever this presentation is uploaded and ready to go. I can include that in the listserv email of, if that's changed or not, if fiscal is still on track for having updates then.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Amanda Zen had a question. Amanda, I'm going to unmute you right now.
Hi, so I have a question. If you order through CalPIA or any interagency and it supplies you that post-consumer content certificate, do we still have to report that in fiscal, or does the interagency or CalPIA report it for us?
Are you talking about reporting the purchases? Or that it's compliant?
Compliant.
No, there's no reporting. Well, let me make sure I answer this correctly. If it's NTIA or yes. In the contracts and it shows you that it's within the compliant standards, then you're just going to mark that in it's SABRC compliant side. So although the purchases under that is it's reportable and compliant.
Got it. So we don't have to report the percentage. Okay.
No, as long as it meets that minimum percentage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Andrea Hopp, I'm going to unmute you. You can ask your question.
Thanks. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
I kind of put 2 in there, but I'll take the first one and go with that. Do you know what the reasoning was behind the language in the AB 661 and regarding that 10% cost differential? And
I wasn't a part of that. I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay. I'm not sure what the benefit to the state is, so I'm a little curious.
Well, my only thought that I could assume is that, before it was economically feasible. And now we did hear a lot that when there was a recycled content product, same product, equal fitness, but it would cost more money than the non-recycled content would get purchased, over the recycled content product. And the only thing I can think of is that they did put a number of, it's worth it. If it's 10%, within that 10% more than the non-recycled content, then it's worth it to purchase that to help us with the circular economy. I feel like that's a complete, my 2 cents on it, but I wasn't part of it. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Andrea, you had the other question. Go ahead.
Okay, I stayed unmuted just in case. Thank you. Second question is, where did I put it? Here it is. Okay, so in regards to that Form 74, you mentioned earlier that a vendor is allowed to write unknown on the reportable content. Would our buyers then track those unknown items as non-reportable?
No, they'd still be reportable as long as they fall within the 16 categories. They just wouldn't be compliant. So
Unknown equals non-compliant then.
say that again.
Unknown content would become.
It wouldn't be compliant if we don't know what the minimum recycled content is, right? Now, there are vendors out there that I've talked to, and LAM staff, if you reach out to us at that SABRC at calrecycle.ca.gov, and if you're buying a large amount of material for whatever reason, if you know this, I know that there's emergency purchases and there's things that are one-off, but if you know that you're going to be making a large purchase and you know that that could affect potentially, and you may not know because depending on how big your organization is, but for example, recycled paint. We have an exterior recycled paint contract already, but what about interior paint? So if you're a prison, state hospital, or something else where you know you're going to be utilizing interior paint, there may not be a state contract on that. However, that same company that has the contract on exterior paint does have recycled content interior paint. And so my point is feel free to reach out to that inbox and say, hey, we're looking specifically for this, and we will do what we can to see if we can find something for you. Does that help?
I think she muted herself again. So, Andrew, I'm going to move on to the next person. But if you didn't get that full answer, please let me know and I'll unmute you again. Teresa Snyder had another question about the 74 form. So, Teresa, go ahead. Okay, Teresa's question says, can a vendor put 0 on the 74 form, or do they say unknown?
I mean, the form should be filled out to the best of their knowledge. And it's under perjury, technically, the form. Let's see if I can, let me pull up the form so everybody sees it. Let me see if I can do this quickly. They can put 0 and it would still be considered non-compliant if it's 0, because we can't identify what the minimum recycled content is. So let me open it. And I'm going to show you this guidance here in a second. This guidance, this the website is really helpful. It gives lots of different scenarios. So I don't know if y'all can see that. And I do have questions when people say that, they're trying to bid out 50 items and this won't hold it. So I always recommend them putting in see attached document or see attachment or exhibit or whatever, exhibit A, and it would have the same information, but in a long format. So that way it's easier. But yes, here they can put, if it's unknown or 0, they can put that, but it wouldn't be compliant if you don't know. And so this website here, the guidance on Form 74 for vendors, goes through a lot of great scenarios showing recycled content and where it's located at. So how to fill it out and where to put it. This product category hasn't been updated, and I will get that updated. But all the new product categories are here, the updated product categories and subcategories. So here's all that information. I don't expect you all to see this because it's hard for me to see it. But they can put 0. But again, if it doesn't meet, for example, 25% post-consumer by weight glass products in it, you couldn't consider it as compliant, SABRC compliant. So that would go in the reportable, but not compliant. Does that help?
Teresa?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Roxanne Harris had a question. I'm going to unmute you, Roxanne.
Hello, hi. I have a question about AB 661, where the language said requires state agencies to purchase recycled product instead of non-recycled products whenever recycled products are available at no more than 10% greater total cost.
Mhm.
So my question is, like, if we're comparing two items, same item from different two vendors. Let's say vendor A is not non-recycle, but then vendor B, they said 1% recyclable post-recycle content, but that's still not compliant. So will this 10% rule applies?
I think I understand what you're saying. So you're asking if you have two like products, one has recycled content, but it doesn't meet the minimum,
Yes.
and then the other one doesn't have recycled content at all. Well, I would argue to still get the recycled content one over the non-recycled content. However, that one would still not be compliant if it doesn't meet the minimum recycled content cost. So if you, again, we'll just use pens again, plastic. Those are going to be under plastic if it's a composite, right? And it's over 50% of plastic based on weight or volume. So again, I personally would pick the recycled content over, but that's you guys, right? This is your buying, your policy, your purchasing. So you may have internal agency purchasing policies. I'm not sure. We're not privy to those. But no matter what, if it doesn't meet that minimum recycled content number, then it's still not considered compliant.
Okay, I was just kind of curious about that 10% like preference, or like
That's
whatever
cost.
the
10%
yes,
more.
the cost.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was just kind of curious about how strict that is. I understand this is a pretty technical question. So I was just kind of curious if it's something that perhaps DGS will further explains, or this is something up to each agency based on their internal purchasing policy.
Right. So I can't speak on everybody's internal purchasing policy, but I can only speak on what the statute says. And so internal purchasing policies may need to be revisited. But again, I can only tell you what the statute states.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. If you do have anything really specific, feel free to email that SABRC@calrecycle.ca.gov on specifics on your situation, and we can talk about it.
Thank you. Will do.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
We do have a few more. There were anonymous, and I think one participant looks like he asked about the categories should never be marked as unknown, only the % given.
Well, again, I can speak to our policy. And so again, I'll see if I still have that policy up. The policy does state that they can mark it as unknown. So here's the policy. Let me see if I can open it. I mean, in my humble opinion, if you're working for a vendor, you're working with a vendor, they're there to also help you not only find the material you need, but to meet the goal of the statute. So let's see here. By using unknown or NA, this explains that the SABRC category information could not be found. Not sure if you can see that. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have a question from Dino. I'm going to unmute you, Dino, if you want to go ahead and ask. His question is there a waiver if the mandatory contract does not meet the minimum?
Sorry, I found the unmute button. I apologize. There are some, this may be way out in the field, but there are some mandatory contracts out there where the goods provided by the vendors do not meet the minimum recycled content. One of them being our biggest is the toner cartridges from Racix. If you go through HP and you look at their actual website, majority of their products and goods do not meet the 20%. So that's popping me and hurting me on my numbers. Is there a waiver when we don't have an option to buy post-consumer content that meets the minimum?
There's no waiver, but in that situation, you're talking about toner. Does it have a take-back program? So in other
No,
words, oh, they don't. Okay. So I was going to say, if it has a take back program and those that are on DGS's that mandatory contract. So I haven't gotten into all the mandatory contracts. I'm not an expert on the mandatory contracts, but I do know that you can get exemption from the mandatory contract. I've been talking to DGS about that, and I was trying to see if I could find the link, but I can't find it quickly. But there is a way. Here we go. There is a way to request statewide contract exemption for state agencies. Now, again, I'm not DGS. This is something you would need to work out and figure out. But if you can find maybe where that product is that has a recycled content or does have a take back program, depending on, you know, if you're talking about toner, cartridge, and ink, you can request a contract exemption. So I don't know. Can you see that website?
I can. It just doesn't. Logistically, that's just very difficult on the volume.
On the volume. Okay. So so which contract are you using currently?
Ray 6.
Ray 6. Okay. So can you send me an email via that SABRC website in inbox, the SABRC at CalRecycle.ca.gov, and let me see what you're ordering and let me see if we can help you out.
Sure. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, we've gotten comments from several people saying that Ray 6 does have a take back program.
Okay. So yeah, let's figure that one out. If it does have a take back program, then you are in fact SABRC compliant.
Okay, I've got a question from Jennifer Stone. I'm going to unmute you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Yeah, so on the CalRecycle 74 form, on the footnotes, product 3, it talks about product categories where we can enter NA, such as electronics. So does that mean, like, if I'm purchasing a television, then I don't even need to put that item as reportable? Is that correct?
So it's up to you. So there are metals, there's plastics, and there's glass. I'm going to use the TV example. Okay. If you can identify which one of those categories is 50% more by weight or volume, then that's where you're going to report it as. If you cannot identify that, then there, you know, you don't know where to report it, then you don't have to report it in that sense. However, it gets very tricky because there's a lot of composite products out there. So there are folks that do not report electronics because they don't know where to put it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, I got a question from, I believe it's Janae or Jeannie McLean Baptiste. Let me unmute you really quick.
If you're not using the take back option on, say, that toner request LPA, can you still mark it as 100%? Or is it only if you're using the option for the take back?
No, it's only if you're using the take back. If you're not using the take back and you're just throwing it in the trash, then it's not compliant.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we have an anonymous question. When will Fiscal be updated to match the new categories? They say they're currently manually tracking 4,000 transactions per month for SABRC.
That sounds like a lot, yes, and I apologize for that. It's a good question, and you can answer this also in the Q&A, Darren. Last I heard, it was going to be April-May timeframe. I haven't heard lately. So I will, I can put that on the listserv blast when it goes out, when this training is completed. And I have the webinar ready to be uploaded. Once it's on the website, I will also have touch base with Fiscal to see if they're on track. April, May, I'm not sure. There's a lot of background database changes because of this, because there was, you know, the 11 categories prior, now there's 16. They can't turn off the 11 categories and redo them all or redo the new ones because it could delete the old data and you don't want to delete the old data. So they're working on it.
Okay. Ben Xia has a question. Ben, I'm going to unmute you.
Thank you. My question is, our department have to purchase a lot of law books from companies, a sole resource. Basically, that's the only company we can purchase those law books from, and they are not SABRC-compliant purchases. And those books actually really bring our number down. Any advice how to do? Can we apply an exemption from somewhere?
That's a good question. And again, we don't have exemptions, but when the SABRC report is submitted, we're going to get there. I'll do one more question after this, and then we'll keep going, and then we'll answer more questions as we go. But during the justification of purchasing, so say you have printing and writing paper, it's only 50% instead of 75%. Whomever is entering in, the SABRC coordinator who's entering in that data would then say the justification is, we purchased $25,000 of books that could not, we tried but did not have recycled content for that paper, and that's why our number is, our percentage is low, and that's a justifiable explanation, and we're going to get to that in a few slides. So we understand there's going to be products that you're not going to be able to meet that minimum recycled content. Okay, completely understand, but that justification has to be explained in the report. And so when that report comes in and our JACE group reviews it, when there is no clear justification or a reasonable explanation of why they didn't meet those minimums, then the local assistance group, our group, then calls and talks to the SABRC coordinator and says, hey, by the way, we noticed that your paper is just shy of 75% or whatever, we talk about it and we ask, but it helps us to know what products are being purchased specifically that are adversely affecting those numbers. So that way we know. Sometimes it's a very general justification. It just says, we couldn't find recycled content products, say in glass, but we don't know what those products that they were trying to find were. And in knowing what kind of products you need, one, it gives us a trend of, hey, by the way, there's a lot of these X products that people are purchasing and they can't find it in recycled content. And we can also work with DGS and they can try to see if they can find contracts to find that product with recycled content. But there's going to be certain ones that we know you may or may not be able to find with that recycled content minimum. So just let us know in the justification for the report.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Yeah,
we have been doing these justifications. I just want to confirm to see if the state can do anything like, if we get a contract, let them print it on the recycled paper, that'll solve the problem forever.
Agreed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to take one more question so we can move on.
Okay, Stephen Fernandez had a question. Stephen, looks like you're unmuted. And then you muted yourself. He just asked, does every item need to be listed on CalRecycle-74 form?
Say that question one more time.
Does every item need to be listed on a CalRecycle-74?
Yes. If it's not one in one of the categories, then that's an NA. And the guidance will help you with that. Go to the website for the guidance on Form 74 and it'll clarify.
Okay, and then just one last question was if all these links would be emailed out that we're putting in the chat here.
Yes. Most definitely.
All right. I think we got well, there's one more question. Can we ask that, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
This is why we have an hour and a half for this training. It's for all the questions. It's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, he asked a long time. I forgot to get to him. So Nathan Ochoa had a question about, well, Nathan, can you, I just tried to unmute you.
Yes, for the toilet paper and the paper towels that we purchase at our institution, CDCR has a centralized purchasing program. And so headquarters gets the credit for that. How can we improve our percentage on those things? Because there's no way to reflect that at our local institution if headquarters is claiming the recycled content. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I've talked to quite a few CDCR folks, and that's what I understand, that the headquarters is actually, and some Caltrans does this too, where they actually do all the purchasing and they put it into a warehouse. And then you guys order what you need, and then it's just moved to your location, to your facility. So they are the ones technically purchasing it, so they're taking that credit. But in your specific situation, if there's another example, because they're purchasing it and you guys are just utilizing it, you guys aren't actually purchasing it from, anywhere. They've already done that part for you. I'm not sure how we can work with that, but email that inbox, sabrc@calrecycle.ca.gov, and I can reach out to you directly. And before I forget, Andrew, do we have any questions in the SABRC inbox?
No questions in the SABRC inbox.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. And don't worry, we'll pause again for more questions. So we're going to talk about tracking. So all products that fall within that 16 product categories are reportable purchases, even if they do not contain recycled content. We've already talked about that. It doesn't matter how the SABRC products were purchased. If an agency spends money on a product or material in a SABRC category, then it is reportable. And then again, you can look at our website for the product examples. Types of purchases, POs, CalCard, contracts, DGS contracts, and everything here. There's more here. Oh, that's just methods. But anyway, I'll go back here. So pretty much any type of purchase. Now, I do know I've talked with multiple people that have cards, department cards where they're more out in the field and they're purchasing things. That's still part of it. Okay. So it's still trying, finding if they're purchasing within one of the 16 categories, they should still look for the recycled content and find those. So knowing that it does not matter how the purchase of SABRC products are made, and if an agency spends money on a product in a SABRC category, it must be reported. So tracking all those purchases over a fiscal year is important, and being clear with with all that tracking. There are instances I've seen and heard from procurement folks, buyers, where somebody's in a hurry and they're purchasing through Fiscal, say, and they're not taking their time to answer all those questions that is in Fiscal. I'm going to show you that in a couple of slides of where to actually notate. So the data coming out later for the SABRC coordinators is only as good as the data going in. So tracking is important. So the biggest key and the biggest takeaway is to track SABRC purchases at the time they were purchased and not months later. It's so much harder to look back in time, especially if staff has changed, or if you're doing 4,000 lines or 4,000 POs a month, whatever it is, it's easier to do it at the time. So the CalRecycle team has created an Excel tracking sheet. I've talked about that already. It's been updated to assist in tracking of the purchases. I know it's not a long-term solution, especially if you're purchasing a lot of items, but it's definitely something that's very helpful. And I've heard from quite a few agencies that do use it, have used it and find it very helpful. Purchases can also be tracked, like I said, in Fiscal. So we're going to show that. So I have some links here that you guys will be able to have access to when the presentation is available. And I also have the Skipper system. I do not purchase. I'm not a buyer. So whenever I talk with buyers, I can go into their system or go into Fiscal through Skippers and see what was all purchased the prior year. And you can organize, and I'm just going to kind of walk through this just in case those that are interested. You can identify the department by any, I've used Department of Industrial Relations, one of the last ones I did, but you can use this little magnifying glass, identify the department, and then of course the business unit will come up. And then over here where it says transaction start date, start and end date of the fiscal year, and hit go. And it spits out some great information. So here's what it looks like. In order to get the detailed information, this is just the high level. If you want the detailed information that actually gives you an Excel spreadsheet of all purchases, including the SABRC-compliant information, you have to hit download detailed information. It might take a while, especially for those that spend or that have a lot of POs and have a lot of items. But in the end, the Excel spreadsheet will spit out, and this is what it looks like. It has what's SABRC compliant, what's SABRC reportable, the categories that they're in, and the subcategories. So you can filter and identify quickly, as long as the data in is good, you can filter quickly to identify which ones were reportable and then sum all that up and then identify those that are compliant, sum all that up. I hazard though, this needs auditing. When I'm talking to buyers and they're trying to figure it out, you have to audit it, because if the data going in, if someone was in a hurry and they weren't filling out the necessary fiscal information, which you might be able to see this on the left, it's a little tough. I stole the screenshot from another training document, but you can see here on the left, it says take back program. If that says yes, that's SABRC compliant. SABRC reportable, yes or no. So if they take the time when they're purchasing or when they're entering it in fiscal to fill this out correctly, the data coming out is very clear and easier to go through than if you're having to go through an audit. Okay. And then on the right here, the fiscal job aids, that's just how to record EPP, SABRC, and fiscal, just a really easy, quick link. And the link is up top for you guys to find that data. All right, do I have any questions before I go on to the annual report?
Yeah, we had one question from Jenny McLean-Batiste. I'm going to unmute you, Jenny.
Yes, it was on the previous questions that we were talking about. One of the attendees asked about repeated books. If we're buying that yearly, like for our OLS, they have to have those books repeatedly, and we know that there's no SABRC and we keep missing that specific category. Will we be penalized for that? Is there a certain amount of time, or as long as we are providing that justification and it makes sense, that we won't have a penalty?
So I can't speak on the penalty. When you guys send in your justifications, if you're missing a percentage, if it's not hitting that minimum 75%, DGS does get the data, and they review as SABRC as part of their triannual auditing, which we're going to talk about in a few more slides. They look at that, but it is, if you have a reasonable explanation, typically you're in compliance, or you're in compliance with a reasonable explanation, right? However, again, what we would like to do is, if we could find if you're spending money consistently on certain things that we're not able to get, such as books, what can we do to help you meet that minimum requirement, especially if there's a lot of money going to it? So it's something that we can talk about, but as penalization, I mean, DGS will review an audit, and then they make their determination based on what reporting has come in. Does that help? All right, any other questions?
It looks like we have one more in the Q&A from Caprice Shular. Let me find Caprice and unmute them. There we go. Caprice, you should be able to unmute now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question was, if we're tracking on our own using the CalRecycle tracking spreadsheet that you have, and we're not required to enter the info in fiscal?
I can't answer that, of whether or not it's required to put into fiscal or not. We just gave you an alternative means of tracking, but I don't know if you have an internal policy with putting things in fiscal or not. I don't know if there's a requirement from DGS, that I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, but that's a good question. All right, let's go on to the annual report. So SABRC reports are due and submitted to CalRecycle by October 31st of each year. If that October 31st falls into a Saturday or Sunday, then it's going to be due the next business day. And of course, as everybody may be aware, state agency fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th. And then I have a link here to log into the system, so into the database. And the database, that link is also available on our homepage. And as a quick aside, back to the question for reasonable explanation, DGS does not get a copy or does not get, if a reasonable explanation was provided, then DGS does not see that part. Okay, just want to clarify that. So we don't forward it. Okay, so if the product falls within one of the 16 categories, but does not meet the minimum recycled content, post-consumer recycled content for SABRC category, or if the total product purchases for a specific category does not meet that 50% or 75% requirement, the SABRC coordinators, like we said, must document and justify as to why the product did not meet the minimum recycled content or purchase requirement. So this helps us determine compliance with the program and understand state agency by recycle markets and trends. So I'm going to give you a few examples of reasonable justification. So for instance, if you have a fleet and you're utilizing glass that is either safety glass or windshield glass, and that's a large purchase, a large amount of money that's being spent, that should be included as a reasonable justification. Because right now at this time, safety glass and windshield glass, we are not able to find with recycled content. Compost and mulch, by definition, compost and mulch is a recycled content. So all purchases in that category should be compliant. Sometimes I see where people are purchasing, compost and mulch, and on one side it's got, say, $50,000, and the other side where it says compliant is $25,000. And the question is, well, compost by its definition is a recycled content product. So to become compost. So again, that's an example. That's not a justification, but that's I'm going to show you in the next slide what the report looks like, how that falls into place. Another one, lubes and oils and greases. There isn't currently a contract. However, there are multiple manufacturers and vendors around the country that do have a lot of lubricating oils and greases that do meet the recycled content product minimums. And that information can be found on our website. We do find that currently there are some reasonable explanations for that if they're not able to find it. But if you do utilize a lot of it and you're trying to find some, go to our website, the product categories link, and you'll be able to find some. Let's see here. Printing and writing paper, we just talked about books, legal publications or subscriptions, things like that. Those are reasonable explanations. Paint, aerosol, craft paint, automotive paint. Currently, we haven't been able to find those that have recycled content, although DGS is working on trying to find, products that they can get contracts with. So let's see, hopefully you all can see this. This is going to be, we are updating our database to reflect the changes. So you can see this is what the coordinator would be entering data in. So I didn't put numbers in, but under the total SABRC reportable dollars, this would be the SABRC coordinator would be entering the data in for total reportable dollars and then what the compliant dollars are. And then when you do that on the column 4 on the right, that percentage will come up and show you where you are. So for carpet, if you put $50,000 in and column 2 and then column 3, you put $25,000 in, column 4 will then spit out 50%. Okay, so you will see, the SABRC coordinator will see these changes when the next report cycle starts. And then here's what the questions are going to look at. Here's the justification box, this first top box. If purchase orders were made and the percent SABRC compliant rate is deficient, and they explain that less than 50% for paint, antifreeze, and tires, or less than 75% for any of the remaining categories, please provide an explanation. And so it's very helpful to provide specific items that are being purchased that they don't have recycled content in them, and that's why you weren't able to meet it. Okay. And then here's additional questions about contractors. If you hire contractors, do you require them to purchase recycled content? And so we'll go through the actual database. We may do a training in the future before the next report cycle so that you guys can see the new database. It's very similar. It hasn't changed too much, but it's changed a little bit. So we may do one later. to walk you all through it. And then quickly, CalRecycle reports SABRC compliance and non-compliance to the Department of General Services. Like we said, we do it annually in February. Since DGS has statute authority to grant purchasing to state agencies, the Procurement Division is the entity responsible for determining the appropriate level of purchasing authority to grant to state agencies. So in carrying out these responsibilities, PAU must verify that state agencies meet purchasing authority requirements or standards provided by the law and policy, and also demonstrate capability to effectively use the authority granted. So state agencies subject to DGS oversight that have been granted purchasing authority by DGS must participate in PA accreditation in order to maintain the authority granted. So DGS, PD, and PAU prepare a triennial schedule for monitoring state agencies that have been granted purchasing authority. And so to be in good standing means that the state agency is reporting as required, does not have unresolved, severe, or continuous deficiencies, and have procurement policy and procedures that have been approved by PAU. Accreditation of a state agency is based on demonstration of conformity with established standards and is an indication of the state agency's capacity to properly manage and administer a purchasing program. The Procurement Division Deputy Director has the ultimate decision and authority. The management team is charged with reviewing recommended accreditation status provided by the Purchasing Authority Specialist. And each accreditation review results in one of the following 5 accreditation decisions. So when they do their triennial review, the final decisions could be 1, accredited with deficiencies in plan of correction, accredited with reduction in purchasing authority, accredited with increase in purchasing authority, or not accredited and revert purchasing authority. So the Purchasing Authority Specialist will follow up on plans mutually agreed to by DGS and the state agency to correct areas of nonconformity identified in the standards and measures spreadsheet. If the state agency fails to comply with implementing corrective action by specific due dates or to the extent agreed to, the accreditation decision will be revisited. Revisiting the accreditation decision may result in a reduction or revocation of purchasing authority. If the state agency complies with implementing corrective actions by specified due dates or the extent agreed to, the accreditation decision may be revisited. So revisiting the accreditation decision in this scenario may result in restoring purchasing authority at current or increasing levels. So quickly, we'll just go through the process. PAU in June received a list of non-compliant departments from CalRecycle. For non-reporting agencies, SABRC coordinator is contacted from PAU and is requested to submit the SABRC report to CalRecycle. So for non-compliant agencies, a PAU specialist is assigned, and if an agency is being accredited in that fiscal year, the purchasing authority specialist will document on the standards and measures. State agencies that are not due to be accredited, the PA specialist will issue a non-compliant allegation notice to the state agency or department and to CalRecycle. So we'll get a CC. So for non-compliant, the deficiency notice should cite the applicable law and policy and direct the department to respond within 30 calendar days to CalRecycle, and that's at that SABRC-CalRecycle.ca.gov, our inbox. And once the deficiency has been addressed, CalRecycle will notify PAU and the deficiency will be closed. So if you want to learn more, I have a link here for the accreditation process. And quickly, we're almost done. Within CalRecycle, we, again, as I described earlier, we have our local assistant and market development group that does all the outreach, providing assistance, and then our JACE group. So when you all submit your report by October 31st, JACE will notify those that have not submitted. They will review the reports, and if the justifications, if there's any issues, if the justifications are reasonable, the report will be accepted. If it's not reasonable, then they send over a report to LAM, to our group, so we can reach out to the agencies to get clarification on their explanations. And then once we review and reach out, that's usually in January. By February, that information goes back to JACE, and then they will send out a letter by the end of February, typically for everyone, whether it's compliant, non-compliant but reasonable, or non-compliant with referral to DGS or PAU. And then towards the end of February or March, they do a statewide memo, and then deficient agencies will reach out if they refer to PAU. So, and again, our local assistance group, we continue to provide assistance. Anything that you guys need, please reach out and let us know. So here's the information regarding recording will be posted on our website. Again, I will send out a SABRC coordinator listserv note when it's ready, and just let you all know. And then finally, for any program assistance, please contact the SABRC at calrecycle.ca.gov. And then if we can put the homepage up in the chat, and then there's also a great printable quick link, which I love. It's got the program in a nutshell, pretty much. Oops, that didn't work. But that's also on the homepage if I can get it to open. But this printable link is very handy to print up and just refer to easily. Okay. So, any questions?
We do have a few questions coming into the Q&A. First up, I have one from Steven Fernandez. Steven, you should be able to unmute now if you'd like to read us your question. Oh, maybe having some trouble unmuting. In that case, this question is, with a large quantity of POs and contracts, how would a department justify non-compliance with the 10% applying to all categories?
Can you repeat that question one more time?
It says, with a large quantity of POs and contracts, how would a department justify non-compliance with the 10% applying to all categories?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Can we unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Basically,
Okay.
I was just wondering, so basically we should be tracking every item purchased. I guess I'm just trying to figure out logistically how to do that. So like if the 10%, right, if most of the things we're buying are more than 10%, the differential, then how would we report that with the variety of goods and categories? Does that make sense? I guess I'm just trying to understand how I could even track that to where if a category is below our percent, how we could justify that if does that make sense? Given the if the main reason is it costs more.
Right. So I'm not exactly sure, but I think let me see if I think I understand what you're asking. So if you're making large purchases, or you're making a lot of purchases, sounds like you have a lot of POs, right? A lot of items maybe within those POs. How are you able to track which ones are within the 10%, or how are you able to track the purchases at all? Because typically it would be depending on how you're doing with the vendors, right? Are you talking about a RFP, RFQ, or how are you doing it? Are you in contracts? What are you utilizing? Might have to unmute him again.
It could be just a moment. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Don't mute yourself until we're done, because we have to unmute you.
Yeah, it's really, for my concern is for goods.
Okay.
So like office supplies and stuff like that, because we have a lot of different offices. So when we order those things, a lot of the time it's more expensive. So I guess when we're tracking in FisCal, right, there's not really a section to write a note as to why it's, I guess has that ever come up? I guess how would we track that? So like if we got to the justification at the end of the year and we weren't compliant, and it was because, the price differential, but because there's so many different product categories that go in an office supply order. I guess
I see what you're saying. I think I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you are ordering in FisCal, each line item has that SABRC, that information you would need to fill out. So you wouldn't be explaining necessarily, but you would be identifying that it's not compliant. So my expectation or my assumption would be if you're trying to audit later, I mean, it's always best to try to keep track of what you're doing, but are you in an agency where you have a lot of satellite offices and then the coordinator is trying to figure it all out at the end? Is that kind of the situation? Because really,
I guess just if you had any pointers on how to logistically do that, like track. I just don't want to get to the end of the year and we submit our report and then we're deficient, and I just don't want to reply the justification to be like, oh, most items are more expensive, because I don't think that's a valid justification, because
Yeah, so it sounds like in this situation, again, if you're within that 10%, you should be purchasing the recycled content over the non-recycled content based on the statute. But Stephen, email me at that sabrak@calrecycle.ca.gov.
Okay, I will.
And let's see if we can sit down and do a one-on-one and talk about how you guys are currently tracking and what you guys are purchasing. And let's see if we can help you figure that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Up next, I have a question from Christine Olson. Christine, could you please unmute? You should be able to now and read your question for us.
Hi, this is Christine.
Hi there.
Yeah, so I had a question on the take back. So if it has a take back program on an LPA like the laptop LPA for the NWN, then we would be able to consider that as recycled, but only if we use that take back part of the contract or of the LPA. Is that correct?
So I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. So when it comes to electronics, because you're using the EPP contract, right?
Yeah.
The electronics, EPP, the environmental purchasing, is for a lot of different things. And in that sense, it's a low power, but not necessarily recycled content. However, I would have to do a little digging in the take back to see if that would qualify. So I would need to get back to you on that. So could you email that to that SABRC inbox?
Yeah, and I also
and I can follow up on that.
I did notice on the take back program on this LPA for the laptops, it says that they will work with the OEM and customers to ensure the take back equipment is reused, reconditioned, or recycled.
Okay.
So the thing is though, so if we use that take back program, says you have to go through DGS and get a waiver or something, but then we would be able to say that that it qualifies for recycled content.
And I'll have to look that up. I'm gonna have to get clarification on that. I know we've had that question before, and I'm not sure if there was a final guidance consensus on it. So if you can email me that, and I will look it up and get back to you.
And also have a quick question on the like if you purchase the laptops, if you can't consider what the actual part is going to be, that it would be the recycled, the most, what would be mostly recycled on them, then on IT products, sometimes you don't have to include them. Is that correct?
Right. So the composite policy, and that should be in the chat, I believe. The composite policy guidance that we have is that if you can identify, like in computers, you've got glass, you've got plastic, and you've got metals.
Yeah.
If you can identify what is the largest, over 50% of weight or volume, and then, that's where you would report it at. But if you can't do that, there have been agencies that have decided not to report it because they weren't sure where to report it at. But it is a composite program material.
Okay.
Product.
So then in an audit or something, you wouldn't be dinged on not reporting those?
Well, I don't know that DGS would be auditing for specific products. If you guys are going through, as in you're auditing your fiscal year spend in a Excel spreadsheet and identifying if those, were compliant or not, that would be done on that. But like as a DGS or a CalRecycle, we wouldn't be auditing individual products in that sense.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for your question.
All right, and we have one more question from Jennifer Stone. Jennifer, you should be able to unmute now.
Thank you. So we're tracking our compliance in Fiscal, but sometimes at the end of the year, when we go back and do our report, we found that an error has been made, but now the purchase order is closed and we can't update the information. Are we allowed to report what would have been correct on the annual report, or does our annual report have to reflect the information that's coming out of Fiscal?
I know of agencies that they correct it because it wasn't inputted correctly, but they catch it on the back end.
Okay.
And that's where that auditing of the, fiscal year data. So, say July 10th, after this fiscal year closes and the coordinator or whomever is downloading all that data and organizing to try to, figure out what the total spend was, whether it was compliant and reportable, they will do line by line and see, okay, this should have been compliant, but it was missed because they didn't enter it incorrectly. So no, it doesn't have to match. If you can audit and identify those that should have been caught and be compliant, then yes, you can do that.
Great, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right, and it looks like Janae McLean-Baptiste wanted to clarify whether IT purchases can be put in as non-reportable. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Janae, or you should be able to unmute yourself now if you'd like to clarify it all.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't misunderstand. So any IT purchases we can put as non-reportable, and that is not, we're not in any violation.
I mean, again, it's up to you guys to decide where to report on it. And if, again, following that composite policy, if you can identify where to put that, then that's what you guys would do. But that would be your decision to put that in a category, or if you can identify. But I don't want to claim any IT purchase is not reportable. There could be, think about other items that are, cell phone covers that would be, or other miscellaneous stuff for IT stuff that you may be able to find with recycled content. But if it is in fact a composite material, then you guys would be the ones to identify and decide where you're going to be reporting that, if you can identify what material is 50% more by weight or volume.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
That appears to be it for the Q&A.
Excellent. Well, everyone, I really appreciate your time. I'll give it a couple more minutes. I wanted to throw up really quick this was a quick guide that I was trying to pull up earlier. And again, it defines post-consumer recycled content, reportable and compliant dollars. It shows every category and subcategory and what their minimum post-consumer recycled content requirements are. It puts it all in a nutshell version, discusses where training, verification by track report, and other information that would be very helpful. So check this out. Also, just quickly want to show you the home page while we're waiting. Again, if there's any questions, we got time. We have what, 7 more minutes? So here's our home page. We've tried to organize it in a way that things are easy to find. And so again, here's where the product categories are. I'll show you that really quick. If you're trying to find, for example, lubricating oil products, it's going to show you, it's going to discuss what it is, give you examples, and then what the minimum content, and then where to buy. And there's links to where you can purchase. And so that'll take you to those vendors or manufacturers. And then you can see what kind of products that they have, and then other useful links. So all of these product categories have something like that. I'll show you textiles really quick. Some more than others. Some have been updated to reflect, if a manufacturer has closed or is no longer available. And then here's a great resource for program requirements. It again shows you what is minimum post-consumer recycled content, and then what the minimum reportable SABRC purchases should be. So which ones are 50%, which ones are 75%. And then when the annual training is available at CalPCA, that information will be here and also be noted in the front on the homepage. And then it breaks down all the must-dos for agencies. Here's the tracking. When we were talking about that spreadsheet, the tracking is here. See if we can open it. And it's going to take a second. There you go. So here's the tracking sheet that has the new categories in it that you guys can expand, and you can make it specific to your needs, your agency's needs, okay? So it has all the updated categories. And let's see here. And then of course, information on the report, how to get to the report. As an FYI, there is a web pass requirement, and I believe if we want to put the web pass, link to the web pass and the link to the SABRC database in the chat, we can do that. It's also here at this database login. So you would just click on this and it would take you directly there. If you need a web pass, this is where that is. So if you're a new SABRC coordinator or if somebody's retired or whatever, if you need to update the name of who the SABRC coordinator, you would go through the web pass, get yourself a web pass, and then you would be able to log in. Let's see here. For those that want to see historically what the reporting results, here's the historicals here. And let's see, we have FAQs that we've reorganized. Feel free to make sure you go all the way to the bottom because I don't want to make you all nauseous, but there's more information here. How do I certify post-consumer recycled content? Talks about Form 74 in depth. Here's some paint FAQs, some textile FAQs. So check out the new webpage. There's lots of great links here that can help you. And again, don't hesitate to email that sabrc@calrecycle.ca.gov with questions. We're more than willing to help. And again, if we can help you find items that can help you meet your the goals, and we'd love to do that. If we have items that we can't find, and that just remember to put those justifications in the report. Do we have any other questions?
I don't see, oh, here's one. All right, we have one question from Caprice Choular. Can you go ahead and unmute you? Would you please read us your question, Caprice? Let's try the button again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anywhere on the website that gives us an example for standard language that can be used in you said that we should have boilerplate language in our contracts. Is there anywhere on the website that gives us a sample or an example?
Yes, let me see if I can find it on the fly. Hold on one second. We did have it, maybe under tools. We've been updating the, hold on a second. Here we go. Wow, I found it quicker than I thought. Okay, I'm impressed. So we are in the process of updating. I'm going to put it in the chat here. We are updating the websites to make sure we have all the best information. But now in the chat under the Buy Recycled State Agency and then certify, here's boilerplate language and sampler boilerplate language you can use.
Okay, how do I get to that page again? Sorry.
Yep. If you go to the chat, I put the link in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you know what? I did, but I just sent that to Mara and Graves. Sorry. Let's send that to everybody. That would be helpful. There you go. That's my bad. Do you see it?
Yep, perfect. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the question. All right, we have 2 more minutes. Give it another, we'll give it 2 more minutes, 1 more minute. And again, I really appreciate you all taking the time. I know SABRC, I get told by some buyers that they forget, they've only do it once a year, or if you have many satellite offices or many people buying, I know it can get overwhelming. So again, tracking and keeping track of what is being purchased is huge, and making sure that staff, buyers are aware of how to keep track. Again, that annual training that's going to be at CalPCA should help get everybody on the same page. So that way, when RFQs are going out or utilizing contracts, you're able to find the products you need that can meet those post-consumer recycled content that to meet your goals. And just remember, for those that don't, just make sure that it's clearly explained in that reasonable explanation in the report, so we know. Any other questions?
Oh, looks like we have one from Janae McLean-Baptiste again. If the vendor has different recycled content than what we have found, do we still document based on the vendor?
That's a good question. I don't know your internal policies for purchasing and procuring, but it would be good to question to make sure if it's the same product, you know, and trying to understand why there would be a difference in recycled content between what you found or what you have. If you've Googled it or something to confirm or clarify with the vendor, that would be a good idea. Did that help?
Sorry, I think I may have accidentally remuted Janae. Very
No.
sorry, Janae.
No worries. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, since we're adding preferences in there, not to say that anyone's going to maliciously do it, but just in case, if they're claiming a preference and we see that the product that they're quoting is not the amount that they say, we should go based off of what we found or make
that sounds like an internal policy, a purchasing
Okay.
policy. Yeah. But what I would also recommend is, and I've heard this from many buyers, is that when they're looking for products and they know that a product is a certain percentage and they're wanting to ensure that their vendors are finding products, they can say, here's an example of a product that meets the recycled content. I've seen and heard from buyers that do that and say, here's example that, you know, can you please find something like that meets the recycled content. All right, well, I want to be cognizant of everybody's time. We're 2 minutes over. Do we have any other questions?
We do have one last one from Teresa Snyder. She is wondering, do you know if there is a fiscal job aid to show how to enter the PCRC into PO?
I just stopped sharing my screen and I should have kept it up. Hold on 1 second. Yes, there is. Let's see if I can find it quickly. Sorry, y'all, if I make you nauseous. Here it is. All right, so again, this, if you want to take a screenshot, or maybe I'll see if I can link it. Whoops. Where'd it go? Sorry, y'all, I went the wrong way. There it is. Okay, so this link, the dgs.ca.gov, this is where you're going to find the EPP, SABRC, and Fiscal, and it goes in. Let me see if I can find it fast to provide an actual live link, because I can't access it on the. Is it going to let me? See if it'll let me. It wants to. Hold on, give it a second. There it is. All right, I'm going to put this in the chat. All right, so if you go to their EPP goods and services, down at the bottom of that link I just put in the chat is Fiscal job aids. And it's right here, how to record EPP SABRC in Fiscal. So when you click on that, looks like it's PDF. I've only opened this once, but I've seen it and it's very helpful. And it's literally step by step. Let me see if I can make that. Can I make that bigger? Sorry, guys. There you go. It's a step by step of how to input that data when it's being ordered. Now, I was under the understanding that even though there's a contract and it does meet SABRC compliance, you still have to manually key these in. It's not defaulted. So this is something to consider. So this is where it is. It gives lots of great information, step-by-step guide, okay? So again, the Buy Green website that's in the chat, go all the way down to the bottom, Fiscal job aids.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, any other questions?
That looks like it's about it for questions.
All right, great. Well, thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. And we look forward to talking to you. If you have any questions, feel free to email us, okay? Have a good one.